Fraud alert. $18,500 charged to Royal Caribbean. The words didn't even look real at first. They looked like spam. Like a glitch. But then I saw the timestamp. 20 minutes ago. The same 20 minutes I had been standing at the sink in my parents' kitchen, scrubbing grease off their bone china, while they toasted my sister's baby moon. My life savings. Gone. 5 years of overtime. Skipped lunches. Second-hand coats. $24,000 meant for my condo deposit. Transferred to Richard. I didn't scream. I didn't march back inside. I just sat in my freezing car and refreshed the banking app again. Balance, $0. Then another text came in. Fraud alert. $18,500 charged. They hadn't just stolen my house money. They used it to fund Mia's luxury cruise. And that's when I remembered the $2 lottery ticket they had thrown at me like a joke during dinner. Maybe this will fix your life, Richard had laughed. I scratched the final number. $100 million. I didn't cry. I tucked the ticket into my boot and checked the bus schedule. They thought they had drained me dry. They had no idea what they had just handed me. And that was only the first domino. I didn't sleep. I didn't celebrate. I didn't even breathe properly. At 7:02 a.m., I was standing outside the state lottery office. Hand steady. Heart quiet. The woman behind the glass scanned my ticket once. Then twice. Her expression changed. Ma'am, please come with me. They led me into a private room. Soft chairs. Muted walls. Security at the door. I signed forms I could barely see through the fog in my head. Lump sum option. Taxes deducted. $62.4 million. That was what betrayal had turned into overnight. Not luck. Not fate. A door. I could have wired money. Bought silence. Moved away. But I didn't. Instead, I drove straight to the bank branch, where my parents had helped me open my first savings account. The same branch Richard convinced me to temporarily add him as emergency cosigner. The manager recognized me. He also recognized the transfer logs. I didn't yell. I simply asked for printed copies. Every withdrawal. Every signature. Richard's signature. Fraud. The bank froze the cruise payment before it fully processed. But the damage? That was already done. Because by the time I walked back into my parents' house that evening, they were celebrating. They had no idea. The cruise refund had already bounced. And they had no idea. I now owned more money than they could imagine. But money wasn't what I was about to use. It was silence. And evidence. And by dinner, the first trap was already set. Dinner was loud. Louder than usual. Mia was glowing, scrolling cruise excursions on her phone. Richard was already tipsy, boasting about family investments. My parents kept smiling at each other like they had pulled off something brilliant. And I sat there, quiet, nodding, passing the salt. No one noticed I wasn't eating. No one noticed I wasn't reacting. They mistook silence for weakness. That was their first mistake. Halfway through dessert, Richard raised his glass. To sacrifices, he said. Sometimes one child has to struggle so the other can thrive. They all laughed. I smiled back. Then I asked one simple question. Dad, can you remind me how you signed the transfer? His fork paused midair. What do you mean? The $24,000. The cruise payment. You signed for it as me, right? The room shifted. Not panic. Not yet. Just confusion. Richard scoffed. It's family money. You live here. Don't be dramatic. Family money. I let the word sit. Then I placed a thin envelope on the table. Bank statements. Signature comparisons. Fraud documentation. The color drained from his face. Mia stopped smiling. Mom whispered, "Why would you print that?" I didn't answer. Because the real surprise wasn't the paperwork. It was what I had already filed that afternoon. They still thought this was a family argument. They didn't realize it was now a legal matter. And when the doorbell rang at 8:17 p.m., that illusion shattered. And this time, it wasn't a delivery. The doorbell rang again. Slow. Deliberate. No one moved. Richard stood up first, irritation on his face. If this is about the refund. He opened the door. 2 officers stood there. Polite. Calm. Professional. Good evening. We're here regarding a reported financial fraud. Silence swallowed the hallway. My mother's hand tightened around her wine glass. Mia's phone slipped from her fingers and hit the floor. Richard tried to laugh. There must be a misunderstanding. One officer looked down at his tablet. Sir, are you Richard Hale? His confidence cracked. Why, yes. You're being questioned regarding unauthorized transfers from an account under your daughter's name. Daughter. Not family. Not shared. Daughter. I stayed seated at the dining table. Hands folded. Breathing steady. My mother turned toward me slowly. You called them. I didn't blink. I reported fraud. Her voice shook. You would ruin your own father over money? Money. That word again. This wasn't about money. This was about signatures forged in my name. About laughing while draining my future. About deciding my life was collateral damage for Mia's comfort. Richard's voice grew louder at the doorway. It was just temporary. We were going to pay her back. One officer calmly replied, Sir, repayment doesn't negate fraud. And that's when fear finally arrived. Real fear. Not anger. Not arrogance. Fear. Mia started crying. Mom whispered, we can fix this. I finally stood up. You can't fix what you already admitted. Because I had recorded dinner. Every word. Every toast. Every laugh about family money. The officer stepped inside. And Richard realized this wasn't a warning. It was the beginning. But the worst part for them hadn't even happened yet. They didn't arrest him that night. Not yet. But they didn't need to. Because the illusion was already gone. The officers left with copies of the statements, copies of the recordings, copies of the forged signature. And when the door finally closed, the house felt smaller. My mother started pacing. You've destroyed this family. No. They destroyed it when they decided my future was disposable. Richard wouldn't look at me. For the first time in my life. He looked unsure. Drop it, he muttered. We'll settle it privately. Settle it. Like I was a bill to negotiate. Mia's mascara ran down her cheeks. What about the cruise? It wasn't even refundable. I almost laughed. The bank had already reversed the pending transfer. The cruise company flagged the booking. The trip didn't exist anymore. Just like the version of me they thought they could control. Mom's voice dropped low. You don't understand what you're starting. Oh, I understood perfectly. Because earlier that afternoon, after confirming the lottery payout, I did something else. I moved out. Lease signed. Deposit paid. Security upgraded. They didn't know yet that I would never live under their roof again. They thought the worst was police paperwork. They had no idea what financial independence really looks like. And when the legal notice arrived 3 days later, it wasn't just Richard's name on it. It was both of theirs. 3 days later, the envelope arrived. Certified mail. My mother's hands trembled before she even opened it. Richard tried to act calm. Tried to say it was just procedure. It wasn't. It was a formal fraud investigation. Joint liability. Asset review. Both names listed. Because the account access had been shared. Because the toast at dinner had included both of them. Because silence is complicity. They had laughed together. They would answer together. Mia locked herself in her room. My mother called me 15 times. I didn't answer. Not out of cruelty. Out of clarity. By the end of the week, Richard's business line of credit was frozen pending review. Their mortgage lender requested documentation. The bank flagged prior transfers. Not because I destroyed them. Because paper trails don't lie. And neither do recordings. The day I collected my lottery payout, I didn't post it online. I didn't pose with a giant check. I met with a lawyer, a financial advisor, a security consultant. I bought a modest condo under an LLC. I changed my number. I closed the joint account. When my mother finally reached me through an email, it was short. You've made your point. No, I hadn't. My point wasn't revenge. It was consequence. They thought they had drained me dry. They thought $24,000 was the end of my future. But the truth? The money was never the twist. The twist was this. They stole from the only daughter who could afford to prove it. And in trying to take everything from me, They handed me the power to walk away forever. And that was the last time I ever answered their door.